for today's class, ladies, what we're going to do is that we're going to look at migration inside and outside of the Caribbean from 1838 to present. So that's what we're going to do. Migration inside and outside of the Caribbean from 1838 to present. So the last place where we would have left off, what was the last thing that we did? Anyone recap? The last thing that we would have looked at?
Sir, we looked at
The
the coming of the Asians and how they impacted the Caribbean.
Very good, excellent. So after the indentured workers came, what we're going to see in the Caribbean is that we're going to see people moving within the Caribbean from islands to islands and from territory to territory, and also migration out to outside of the Caribbean. So our objective, identify the various patterns of migration inside and outside of the Caribbean, list the reasons for migrations, examine the impact of migration on the Caribbean. And on Wednesday's class, we are going to look at the effects on the host country. All right? So our timeline is that we're looking from after slavery ended to present, migration inside and outside of the Caribbean. Quick recap, what is migration?
Migration is the movement of a people to another area.
It's
Yes.
when people move from one home to another permanent home.
Yes, and always remember that migration is not always permanent. You can go for very short term, temporary migration. All right, you're correct. So, for example, people move from areas like, you can have rural urban migration where you move from rural areas, rural Jamaica to urban. Some people move from urban to rural. You have migration within countries, within a country or territory. If you check, if most of you, if you are living in maybe Portmore or you live in Kingston and St. Andrew, you will realize that your family is not originally from there. Your great-grandmother, your grandmother, when Christmas or Easter, when funeral is happening, you go back to your place of origin. Even though you were born in Kingston, your family place of origin is somewhere in Hanover, Westmoreland. All right? So we know migration happens. Asking somebody to read this for me, please.
Migration and the Caribbean. Migration is one of the greatest themes of Caribbean history. Caribbean populations are almost the result of immigration from Africa, Asia, and Europe. Since the 16th century, since the end of slavery in the 19th century, there has been frequent and often large-scale migration both within and outside the Caribbean basin as people sought brighter and political prospects than they perceived were available at home.
All right, so these historians argue, our migration scholars argue that migration is one of the greatest themes of Caribbean history. The entire story about the Caribbean is a story of migration. People came into the Caribbean and we now going elsewhere. We are always on the move, right? Whether it is by force or it is by free will. Caribbean people is always on the move. So one of the greatest themes of Caribbean history is migration, all right? And that is so true because we have two types of migration taking place. We have inter-regional migration and extra-regional migration. Inter-regional is also called intra-Caribbean migration. What do we mean by inter-regional or intra-Caribbean migration?
Migration between the Caribbean countries.
Migration between the Caribbean countries. Now, when we talk, you are correct. Anyone want to give an example of inter-regional?
Sir, like migrating from Jamaica to Barbados.
From Jamaica to Barbados is one example of inter-regional migration. And so, for inter-regional migration, we have quite a lot of examples from early as 1898 after Cuba gained their independence from the Spanish. They had a void on the sugar plantation there. And so a lot of people from the British West Indies, places like Jamaica and Trinidad, is that the internet have issue? Actually, ladies, you just heard what I just said?
No,
Are
sir.
you cut out?
Yes, sir, you cut off.
Sorry about that. I just saw that the internet said, but let us pray that the internet don't go. All right, so from early as 1898, after the Spanish-American War, the Cubans gained their independence from Spain. And so there was a void on the sugar estates or plantation there. And so they would have imported workers from Jamaica and other British Caribbean countries to go to Cuba to work on sugar estates. Jamaica, quite a lot of Jamaicans went to Honduras and Costa Rica to work on banana plantations. In fact, most of the bananas that you see in North America and Europe actually comes from Honduras and Costa Rica. A lot of Grenadians went to Venezuela to work in the oil industry. Trinidad, people from Trinidad and Grenada also went to the ABC Islands to work in the oil refinery industry. Also, around 1884, from as early as 1884, you have people leaving from the Leeward Islands, places like Antigua, Montserrat, going to Santo Domingo to work on their banana plantations. And there are two main migration patterns that happen when it comes to Panama. Between 1850 and 1855, a lot of people left the British West Indies, places like Jamaica and Grenada and Trinidad and Barbados, to go and work on the railway in Panama. So the first thing that people left the British West Indies to go and work on in Panama was to build the railroad or the railway. So that is the first thing. Then by the 1880s, they went to Panama again. A different group went to Panama and they went to build the Panama Canal. Now, a perfect example of this, when I went to Panama, the taxi driver that the hotel would have sent for me, he said, when I entered the car, he said to me, English? I said, no. He said, actually said, Espanol. I said, no Espanol, English. And then he said to me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Jamaica. And he told me that his great-grandmother and great-grandfather is or was Jamaican. So you can see from there that, and he said that they came to Panama to work on the canal. I told the class previously, the other class, that when I was growing up, my neighbor, her mother was from Costa Rica. Her mother went to her father went to Costa Rica to work on banana estates in Costa Rica, came to Jamaica, went to Costa Rica to work on the banana plantation, met a young lady in Costa Rica, brought her to Jamaica as his wife, and she would have lived here until she died. In fact, they would have visited Costa Rica 2 years ago to visit their mother's family in Costa Rica. Now, the funniest thing about it is that their mother's family in Costa Rica speaks only Spanish, and they grew up here. Their mother didn't teach them the Spanish, so they are English. So you're meeting another side of your family who is complete Spanish and you're English. But they told me that, she told me that the experience was an awesome experience in meeting her mother's side of the family. So other migration patterns, a lot of people leave from Jamaica to Barbados, Antigua, Cayman. The same thing happened. People leave from Barbados to Jamaica, as mentioned earlier, from Antigua to Barbados, from people just moving. Caribbean people moving all over the place. You have a lot of Haitians that move to the Bahamas, and that has been a phenomenon. Another thing is extra-regional migration. So if we should go up, I mentioned that there are 2 types that the syllabus asks us to look at: intra-regional migration and extra-regional migration. Extra-regional migration is moving to other regions of the world. Places like Brazil, the US, Europe, Canada. But there's one thing I need to point out here, ladies, about inter-regional migration. You would have seen that I mentioned countries like Venezuela that we really don't consider part of the Caribbean, and places like Panama and Costa Rica and Honduras. But for this part of the syllabus, we are going to consider them to be part of our region, only for this when it comes to migration, because that's how migration scholars would have put them a part of the Caribbean, right? So we have people moving. If you're growing up, or maybe you every summer you might go to the US or go to England or go somewhere to visit a family member. Extra regionally, you have family members who are living in those places. Next, reasons for migration. What are some of the reasons why people migrate?
Majority of the
Go ahead.
Because they were forced at the Africans.
People were forced to migrate? Forced how?
The Africans. The
Sir,
Africans were enslaved.
Remember, Carissa, we're looking at the period after slavery ended, 1838.
Sir, I'm just saying, you asked why they migrate. Some people were forced.
well
there another one could be work opportunities.
yeah.
Who said that?
Joanna Rose, sir.
All right, Rose, very correct. So one of the reasons why people migrate is after 1838 is because of, especially if they migrate within the region after slavery ended, and also they to other parts of the world, is because of work opportunities. Any other reason?
To escape like crime and violence.
Escape crime and violence. Somebody mentioned that. I always hear that. I've heard that in the previous class. Give me another. Well, expound on that, crime and violence. Gilbert.
Sir, like, well, we're talking about like in countries in like certain Caribbean countries or Latin American countries, there's like high crime rates because there's low unemployment and there's a whole bunch of like gang violence. So like, you know, some of the people there run away, like they participate in different things to run away and cross the borders to like America or to different Caribbean countries.
Yes, you're very correct. Very correct. So those go. Oh, Sinclair, you have something saying?
Yeah, like you have other reasons like social migration. So sometimes they'll move to like places in the United States because they hear probably they can their life is much better or they have more money or it's just probably people who might move to California because of how lavish it looks or something. So social migration.
Very good. Excellent. So ladies, these are some of the reasons why we migrate, or people migrate. One of the first one that I'm going to look at is political instability. People migrate to escape political violence, instability. Not only that, one second. Countries actually going through political turmoil, and so a lot of people are going to leave. A lot of people, they are going to leave to escape political violence or instability. For example, before the Cuban Revolution, during the Cuban Revolution, and I believe the revolution still continues now. Once the once socialist government is still in place, the revolution continues. So we always see Cubans who are migrating to escape Cuba. They don't like the political system there. They feel that it is oppressive. Not every Cuban, some Cubans. Because when I went to Cuba last year, some of the Cubans there love the revolution, while some will tell you that no, we don't like it. We need more opportunities and all of these different stuff. So people leave because of political instability. Grenada Revolution, before the revolution happened in Grenada, Eric Gary would have oppressed quite a lot of Grenadians with his Mongoose gang. They would have left Grenada to escape the political victimization. During the revolution under Bishop, people also would have left Grenada. Jamaica in the 1970s and 80s, a lot of violence, political violence happened in Jamaica, and a lot of people left Jamaica because of the violence that was going on. In fact, on October the 30th, 1980, that election, the election period, which is about a 6-month period, over 800 people actually died because of political violence in Jamaica. And also in Haiti, people has always been migrating from Haiti because of the violence or the instability of the country, right? So that's one reason why people migrate, political reasons. Also, people also migrate because of economic reasons, to escape poverty. Most Caribbean countries, not all, most Caribbean countries have very high poverty rate. Jamaica, I don't know the figure right now, but with the advent of COVID, the poverty rate is going to increase significantly. Well, you could hear about what the government wants to say about building back stronger during the election, or the government is saying prosperity. With the advent of COVID, you're going to see poverty increase significantly in this country. Now, in 2010, poverty was very high, and the poverty was around 23% in Jamaica. So 23% of Jamaicans in 2010 lived lived on less than $1 a day. That's quite a lot of people. And you can know that poverty is going on in our country because the level of bike robbery that is taking place all over Kingston and St. Andrew. It is very clear that people are hungry, and when people cannot find food and they don't have job, they are going to rob. Serious, serious problem. I used to live at an apartment before, the current one that I'm living on. At that apartment, as you step through the gate, the guys on the bike attack the people from the apartment. Luckily, when I was living, I lived there for about 2 to 3 years, and I used to walk to school, walk to Andrews, and listen, nobody never really attacked me more than a morning. I was going out, and I by the time I reached Twin Gates, is Twin Gates Plaza? One of that plaza right there. I see a guy that was following behind me, and I take out my pepper spray. So one thing for sure, ladies, is that we know that poverty is here. And so people, not everybody going to sit down in the poverty and say, well, the Lord will help me through it. People are going to find ways to live. Opportunity. Another reason is high unemployment. There's a lot of people who are searching for jobs and cannot find jobs. Qualified people and people who are not qualified. You just simply cannot find jobs. Underemployment, meaning that you're qualified, you're well qualified, but the job that you're doing is way below your qualification. So for example, I'm going to give an example that I gave to the other class. In Barbados, when I was living in Barbados, I had friends who work at the gas station, and they had a first class honors degree, master's degree with distinction, and they were at the gas station working. They were underemployed. So just imagine, because most people, once they get a little CXC subject, they say, oh, you're on top of the world, Cape. Well, in this present world that we're living in with the economic situation, you have people working way below their qualification. People with masters and degrees who cannot find job. And if they cannot find job to meet their qualification, then they are going to leave. Next, low wages. The salaries here are very low. Salaries in the Caribbean overall is very, very low. And so people is going to leave, especially when it comes to teachers and nurses. I don't know about the other profession, but I can talk about this: teachers, nurses, police, soldiers. Somebody told me the other day that a young man who just entered the JDF taking home $50,000 for the month. How are you supposed to give somebody $50,000 as a government to work? $50,000 a month. What that can do, bus fare alone is $50,000. And so people are going to leave because of the low wages. Another thing is that IMF program, we're going to look at the IMF program. Once countries are in debt and they cannot afford to pay their workers, they usually borrow money from the IMF. And in borrowing money from the IMF, the IMF is going to put some restrictions on the country, and that is going to make life much harder for the people within a country. And as a result of that, because of the IMF programs, people are going to leave. Another thing is that why people leave for economic reasons is opportunities, job opportunities abroad, or wage differential, meaning that abroad you earn a way higher wages. So you're going to leave because if you're a nurse in Jamaica, if you get a job abroad, you can get way more money as a nurse abroad. Same thing if you're a teacher or a medical doctor. The other day on all angles, it was revealed that the doctors, medical doctors here in Jamaica, the young medical doctors just finished their degree, cannot find jobs. And the next thing is that not only that they can't find jobs, but the government is paying them 80 and 100,000. So you go and spend 7 years in med school to get 80 and $100,000 for the month. So these are some of the reasons why people migrate. Economic reasons why people migrate. So once you are going through some economic hardship or there is better prospect in terms of to improve your economy, your personal economy, then guess what? You're going to make the decision to migrate. There are non-economic reasons why people migrate, and some of these non-economic reasons include education. You get a scholarship abroad to go to, where you get a scholarship to go abroad to study. You go abroad, you leave. You maybe go for a period, a short term. Some people, majority of the people, you go abroad to work, to study. You go to for example, let I use Sinclair. You go, say for instance, you get a scholarship to go to Harvard. You go to Harvard University. At Harvard, you meet a African American young man there. You like him like you. Both of you dating. You're together. School graduation time. What are we going to do? I don't trust the long distance relationship. Him, I can't live without you. So guess what? Let us get married and let us remain. And so you end up staying in the US. The plan when you leave your parents' home is that once you finish study, you're going to return home. That is all of us' plan. In fact, that was my plan. Once I finish study, I'm going to go home. Once I step on that plane and I left to study, I never returned home. Never. Right? So these are some of the reasons or factors that influence migration. Education, scholarship. Some people migrate because of access to better health care. Other people migrate because they want to gain citizenship of another country. So some people might migrate to say, all right, this Jamaican passport, it's not working. Everywhere you're going, you need a visa. I cannot deal with this visa problem. So guess what? You go abroad, you get a stay in the US or married to somebody in the US and earn a passport there, gain the citizenship, you have a passport, you travel on your US passport, a British or a Canadian passport. Other people migrate to reunite with families who would have migrated before you. If they send for you, we call it file in quotation. Say, you will often hear people say, no, that my auntie filed for my family and we're moving to go to the US. So quite a lot of people migrate to reunite with families. Some people migrate to flee domestic violence, especially females. A lot of females decide that, listen, I've been living with this man for too long and he has been abusing me. I am telling him that, listen, I'm going to visit my sister in Canada and listen, I will be back next week. 5, 10, 15 years come, the woman don't return home, even if she have children, to leave the children right here and leave the man right there, and she take up herself and she disappear, because sometimes the children look so much like their fathers that you don't want to remind yourself of the man, so you just take up yourself and you leave. And these are some of the realities. These are stories that migration scholars would have documented. People would have shared their real life experiences that, listen, I leave and I leave my children, I leave all of these different stuff, and I just leave because I could not deal with the abuse. Another reason why people migrate is perception. Someone would have mentioned that there's a perception that California have a certain level of affluent, not really, yes, to some extent, but there are some areas of Las Vegas that the poverty there is horrible. The crime in some LA city, some parts of LA is terrible. The streets full of drugs. So there's also a perception based on what we have seen, especially on the TV, that everything foreign is good and better. So people migrate because of these perceptions. Also, people migrate because of discrimination, especially people from the LGBT communities. They too migrate because to escape the discrimination. So for example, you have a gay young man in your community. Every time he walks on the road, they throw stone at him. Next time you realize that they burned down his house, he ends up living in the gully close by where your school is. He's living in the gully, end up robbing the other people. The US Human Rights Organization said, all right, we need to help this young man. He is well educated, all of these different stuff. He has been living his life, but because of his sexual orientation, he has been discriminated. His life is at threat. The US Embassy give him an asylum visa, and he goes to the US and he lives. So quite a lot of people from the LGBT community migrate because they cannot live their lives in the Caribbean without any form of because there's a lot of prejudices in the Caribbean when it comes to people of alternative lifestyles. So those are some of the reasons why we migrate. Now, ladies, what are some of the positive effects of migration? Positive effects.
Sir, for the persons who migrate for educational purposes, when some of them who come back to their homeland country, they can be able to better their country.
Yes, so they come back with the expertise. Very good. Excellent. Any other point, ladies?
Probably increase of trade between different countries. So for example, if you have a relative in Canada and they have to send things to Jamaica, you can increase the trade between these countries.
Very good point. Excellent point. And on that point, on trade, I just want to develop this one a little. For example, we have people that migrate and live abroad, families and so. A lot of people, for example, Grace Kennedy and Lasco and all of these different companies, they send Jamaican goods or Caribbean goods abroad for the diaspora, people who is living within the diaspora. So even though America has their mackerel, Grace tin mackerel over there because the Grace tin mackerel tastes different from the mackerel that is in America. Same thing with maybe a ketchup. Heinz ketchup tastes completely different from Lasco ketchup. Lasco ketchup is a little sweet, while Heinz ketchup is, what do you call that now? It have this, it's not so sweet. So you have all of these different taste buds, right? And people, there's opportunities when it comes to migration. Now, for example, when I used to live in the country, we have a lot of ackee trees on the land. And a lot of persons used to drive around the area asking for ackees. They pick the green ackees from the tree and they bring it to a factory. They do whatever they're doing to the ackee, and they put the ackees in tin and they send it abroad. Same thing with callaloo. People grow callaloo, you send the callaloo abroad in tins. So trade is very, very important. Another thing, yes, if somebody has something saying, Sanchez or Gilbert.
Let Shanae speak and then I'll go after.
Go, Gilbert.
I was just saying that like another positive effect of migration is that it improves the quality of life of both the migrant and their families, because when they go to another country, then they have the opportunity to get better jobs, which will put them in like a better social standing, and then it impacts their family, because if their family is living in the home country, then they can send money to them to sustain them. And it also positively affects like the resources of like a country, because when that person leaves, or when people are leaving the country and you know the population goes down, then there's less people using resources and more people can get like certain jobs, because you know maybe there's some job positions are open now because people are leaving.
Excellent point. Very good point. But there's something that you said earlier, and I'm not disagreeing, but I'm putting another spin to it. So you have a lot of teachers and nurses who leave and migrate. While it is true that some would have received better jobs, the majority go abroad and work, like example, as a domestic. But guess what? They are getting way more money than that what they used to earn in the Caribbean, right? So sometimes the jobs are not always better jobs. In fact, there's a view out there that it is not brain drain, but it is brain waste. Meaning that you are underemployed. So you leave your working, you're qualified, but when you go abroad, you're doing a job that is not to your qualification. Go ahead, Sanchez. Sanchez is here?
I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't know what happened. I couldn't hear.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir, I was just gonna say that it gives students a chance at higher education, or it reduces the unemployment rate in that country of that the people are migrating to.
All right, good. All right, it reduced the unemployment rate from the country of origin. So if I'm leaving from Jamaica to the US, it reduced the unemployment rate in Jamaica. That's what you're saying?
Pardon?
Are you saying that if I am leaving, so I'm O'Neill, I'm living in Jamaica right now, I leave to go to the US, are you saying that the unemployment rate is reduced in Jamaica?
Yes, sir.
Good, excellent, good. All right, so those are some of the positive effects of migration. Some of these we would have mentioned already. For example, number 9, market for export. This was properly developed. Provide employment, which Sanchez would have mentioned. Gilbert would have also talked about reduce demand for jobs. So a lot of people, when somebody leave, there's opportunities when it comes to, so once you have somebody that working in a position, once they migrate, somebody else get the job. So the government has less trouble in finding jobs for people. Now, another effect that I want to zero in on is hometown associations. Now, these are associations which are formed by immigrants within a host country. So, for example, for hometown associations, we have, say for instance, most of you move and you live in Atlanta, you go and you form a Jamaica Association in Atlanta. You move to New York, you form the Jamaica Association of New York. You go to Barbadians, leave and they go to Canada, they form the Canadian Association in Canada. And so everywhere people go, they are going to form associations. And those associations are very helpful, especially when it comes to the school. When I was going to Jamaica College, I received scholarships from the Old Boy Association in Atlanta and Florida. I would have received scholarship from them. And they also, well, at the time, I don't know if it is still happening, they gave the school a lot of money. Last week, I read in the newspaper where the Old Boys Association somewhere in the US would have donated $15 million to Kingston College to help with the COVID and buying laptops and all of these different stuff for the schools. So we have hometown associations. Where I used to live in the country, they have the persons who migrate to the US from that area, they came together, they form an association, and someone in the group was a medical doctor, and she got some members of her staff to return to the community, and every year it happens where they return to the community and they give things like eye check, this, all of these different stuff, medical checkup, all of these free medication, glasses, healthcare. You might be a medical doctor, you go abroad, you live in the US, you have some Jamaican doctors there, you form an association, you come back home, and you give some free healthcare to Jamaicans, or you sponsor Jamaican to go and do a heart surgery or to get rid of some cancer stuff or all of these different stuff. So hometown associations are very, very important. Another one that I would have expected students to mention a positive effect is remittances. Remittances are money that family members or people from a country of origin send from their host country. I moved from Jamaica, I go to the US to live. Guess what? I'm sending back money home from my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my uncle. My neighbor down the road said, listen, call this person and may I ask for 50 US because I need to cancel a prescription. These are some of the realities in the Caribbean. Remittances, the Caribbean people live on remittances. If remittances should decline in the Caribbean, the poverty in the Caribbean is going to increase to above 50% because there are many homes today in the Caribbean that rely solely on remittances from abroad. And the government also relies on the remittances. So for example, I'm living in North America. I send 100 US here in Jamaica. My family member who is getting that 100 US is not getting 100 US cash. They're actually getting the Jamaican equivalent. The government is taking that US dollar that was sent and put that US dollar to help with to buy goods and services. So, in other words, remittances are very important. It's a large earner for governments. Another positive effects of migration is tourism. You go abroad to study, you're going to bring back your friends here in the Caribbean to study. When I was living in Barbados, every single year I bring back a friend back. Bring a friend to Jamaica to visit Jamaica. We end up the places, the amount of money we spend, because when a friend is coming, is usually coming to Jamaica for one time and they are not usually going to come back. So guess what? You have to bring them all over. You have to bring them Devon House one day. You have to bring them Bob Marley Museum. You bring them downtown. You give them the experience downtown. Then you carry them to the North Coast. Then you go to Duns River. Then you go to the place where you do the bath, the fire and the water, where you like the water and the fire comes when you bathe in the fire water. And then also you bring them now to another place, Portland, to raft. And then also you carry them now to up in Maroon Town. And then you carry them to the zoo in St. Elizabeth. And so you're all over the place. So tourism, once people leave, they are going to contribute to tourism. Also, a lot of people who migrate return home every year. And once they return, just go to Duns River Fall on any holiday, and you see the amount of Jamaicans who are there, and they ask them, show me an ID. They don't have a local ID. I am Jamaican. What do you mean I have to pay the US rate? Them start to cuss. Why I need to pay the US rate? I was born in Jamaica. No, you don't have a Jamaican ID. That's what they're saying. So if you show me your US ID, you have to pay the tourist rate. And so even if I was born in Jamaica, I still have to pay the tourist rate. Yes, you still have to pay the tourist rate because you do not have a Jamaican ID. And so tourism is also a positive effect because people come back and contribute to the tourism industry. When also people abroad also, those who have migrated, invest. So they come back, they buy apartments, they buy a house, they build, not hospital, they build, we call it the places now, business places, stores, all of these different stuff, investment. And also positive effects of migration to lobby, you lobby government. So for example, those of our people who would have migrated and make it big in the abroad, they, once they make it big, they speak on behalf of our government in those territories, right? For example, we can use the example of Yvette Clarke. In 2010, the Jamaican government would have destroyed the economy during that period. And as a result of that, Dr. Peter Phillips, well, under Portia Simpson Miller government, she would have, the IMF said, we are not giving Jamaica any money because you didn't follow the program. And Yvette Clarke, who is of Jamaican descent, she went to President Obama and she said to President Obama, listen, President Obama, Jamaica is in serious crisis. Forgive Jamaica for the mistake that they would have made when it comes to the economy under Prime Minister Bruce Golding. And so what he did was that he said, all right, Yvette Clarke, you are of Jamaican descent, you speak on behalf of the government, I'm going to give Jamaica another chance. And so people lobby on behalf of government. Same thing when it comes to Colin Powell. He would have lobbied on behalf of the Caribbean when he was in office. Some negative effects, ladies, once people leave, you're going to have brain drain in certain sector or loss of skilled labor. So you're going to have teachers going, for example, teachers who are doing the sciences and math. There's quite a lot of schools today that don't have math and science teachers. Some hospitals are losing skilled nurses, especially the ones who are trained when it comes to surgical procedures. They just simply don't have the nurses because the nurses are going. Crime, once people leave, some unscrupulous people in the Caribbean, they're going to send back guns into the Caribbean in barrels, in shipments, and all of these different stuff. And so what that is going to cause in the Caribbean is that you're going to have increased crime and violence. Drugs trade. There's a strong drugs trade between the Caribbean and the countries abroad. So what is happening is that we here send the drugs abroad, right? And they send the guns here. So you have the guns for drugs trade that takes place. Who you think sending it? You think it's somebody, a white American who is sending the guns here? No, it is Jamaicans who would have migrated who are sending the guns back here in barrels. Same thing when it comes to the drugs. They are the ones, Caribbean people are the ones who are sending the drugs there to Caribbean people to sell. HIV and AIDS and other diseases such as COVID, look at it. Before the country reopen, the numbers in COVID cases were pretty low. But guess what? After COVID, once the Prime Minister would have opened up the country, the number of cases increased significantly. People bring diseases here, especially when it comes to things like flu. When it comes to the flu season, always notice when is the flu season. December, January, and everybody coming back to the Caribbean for holidays. Them come back and then bring their flu from North America and the cold here. They go on the plane. Well, COVID now, everybody wear masks, so things should be much better now. But cold and flu and all of these different stuff spread across borders. And another negative effects of migration is families are disrupted. Quite a lot of families disrupted as a result of migration, because guess what? I leave my children here. I leave my children with their grandparents. Grandparents cannot take care of them when they reach a certain age. So guess what? Families are disrupted and some children feel neglected. So even though you're sending money monthly to me, guess what? I still feel neglected. So families are disrupted. So these are some of the negative effects of migration. Any question, ladies?
Can I answer a question?
Repeat.
Can I answer a question?
Go ahead.
One negative effect, for example, when people migrate to different countries, some migrants will throw away their Caribbean culture to pick up the culture of the host country, or when they have offsprings up there, the offsprings will they will take the culture of the host country. So is that under family disruptions also?
No, I wouldn't call it family destruction, but you could call it cultural erasure.
Okay.
Where your culture, the culture that you grew up with, that is a completely separate point, but it is a very good point. I'm going to add it here. Cultural erasure, when your culture, you erase your culture. Some people do it by choice, where you erase a Caribbean culture.
Isn't that just assimilation?
Huh?
Isn't that just assimilation?
But part of assimilation is that your culture is being erased. We're going to look at the process of, we're going to look at cultural erasure, retention, and renewal in a few weeks' time. Are you going to understand much clearer what I mean by it? All right? Because when you are being assimilated in an environment, you are losing some of the things that you actually knew, while at the same time you're adopting new things. Any other question, ladies? Gilbert, is that all right?
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Good. McDonald?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, I understood what you just said about the whole, you would take on this new persona, I guess, or whatever. But there are people who can switch on and switch off. Like, you're not erasing your culture, like at your house or wherever you stay, you talk Jamaican and eat Jamaican food and all those things. But when you're, in, wherever you are, when they're speaking in a certain accent or whatever, you talk like that so that they can probably understand you better or whatever. But I don't think it necessarily has to be classified as cultural erasure.
That's an excellent rebuttal. I agree with you also. It's a very good rebuttal. Because sometimes you adopt The culture, you have to adapt the culture as a form of survival. So if I move to a certain place alone, I cannot twang. To be honest, if I should go abroad, listen, I don't think I will be able to twang because listen, I just cannot twang. I tried and I feel miserable.
And unfortunately, you have people like, for example, my cousin. She leave Jamaica and she went to America, and she acted no part of her is Jamaican, and she acted like, oh, she was born in Jamaica. So everything is American, American culture, American style of living, everything.
Yes, and Sinclair, I agree also with that because I have a cousin who born in Jamaica. May I tell you, say he's born in rural Jamaica country where the rainwater they used to bathe with. And no river never did close and no pipe. So if the rain don't fall, they don't have water. Rural Jamaica. From she leave Jamaica, she has never returned. And she has nothing to do with Jamaica. And she said it that I don't want to be associated with Jamaicans. That's the fact. That's also part of the complexities of migration. The truth is that when studying migration is not always black and white, there are always exceptions. Any other question, ladies? Or comment?
No, sir.
All right, ladies, just remember to complete the form. I want to approve the topics by the end of the day. So just go onto the form, fill out the information. One person from a group can do it. Put all your names there, your topic, your theme. Just go onto it and make the adjustments to the Google Doc. All right, ladies, so tomorrow, remember you're doing the multiple choice tomorrow. It's a quiz. You do the multiple choice tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, we're going to continue with migration. All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of the day.
You too, sir.
You too, sir. Bye, sir.
All right, bye-bye.